Have you ever wondered what separates a struggling business from one that thrives? How do successful entrepreneurs build trust, attract great clients, and create a business that can run without them? If you've ever wanted to take your business to the next level, you're going to love today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lonergan, and today I'm joined by an incredible guest, Pat Brennan, the CEO and founder of Catalyze Growth Partners. Pat is a true entrepreneur at heart, with an inspiring story that started after being fired from a corporate job, a moment that made him realize he was always destined to build something of his own. In our conversation, Pat shares the lessons he's learned from his entrepreneurial journey, including how to fail forward and turn every challenge into a win or learn moment. We'll dive into his holistic approach to lead generation, marketing, and client acquisition, and how he helps businesses build trust, communicate their values, and attract the right clients. By the end of this episode, you'll walk away with actionable strategies to adapt to the ever-changing market and create a business that not only thrives, but flows effortlessly in generating leads and growth. Before we dive in, if you're an entrepreneur making over $1 million a year and you're not actively working to minimize your tax burden, you're losing money. That's exactly what we help with at Vital Strategies. Visit vitalstrategies.com/tax to see how much you could be saving. Pat, I'm excited about this conversation today. We're going to look at, I think, a few things. A little bit of your story about becoming an entrepreneur. Also talk about, I think, maybe financial advisory industry in general, and then how to acquire great clients. I think that's always a fun, relevant conversation for our listeners. So today we've got on the show Pat Brennan, CEO and founder of Catalyze Growth Partners. And I think this is going to be a fun time. Thanks for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Very good. So I'd like to just start off and hear a little bit about your story and how you got into entrepreneurship in general. I think that most people that have survived as an entrepreneur have a story. It's we all think, society thinks that, I'm just going to be the entrepreneur. They have all the time and all the money. And the reality is they put in the most time and generally are the last ones to get paid when things go sideways. So can you fill us in a little bit on your story of your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I think there was always a desire to create a business. And it took me a really long time to actually do it, just because I had no idea how to, right? I thought there was, supposed to be a plan, or there was supposed to be a path. My parents both took traditional paths. My dad is a banker. My mom was a school teacher. And so I was really the first entrepreneur in the family. So there was limited resources from them in, how to actually do this. But despite that, when I was at around, I think I was 22, I was still in school, I decided to do like a college pro painting business. And that was the first time that I ever understood, what does business look like? How do you market your business? How do you do sales? How do you manage people? Like I was hiring, painters. And it was just like a colossal failure. I made some money, but it was just some jobs didn't go as well as I wanted to, some irate customers, just managing those relationships, and just feeling like for some of those situations, not great. Some of them jobs went really well. But that was my first, introduction to this. And then once I graduated school, I realized I didn't want to be, a lifelong painter or run a painting business. And so I jumped into the early stages of the food delivery business. So the founder went to, I think it was Indonesia, and he noticed food delivery existed there, but it didn't exist here. And so he created a business, and that business eventually got bought by another big business in the US, in Europe. And I remember the day where I'm sitting at lunch, and I just had heard that Uber was doing like Uber Eats for the first time. And like immediately when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, like this is gonna be insane. Like we're competing against the behemoth that Uber was then, and I mean now they're a publicly traded company, but the tactics that they were using and the aggressive nature of growing the business, and just the unlimited coffers of money that they had. I didn't realize at that specific moment, but over time started to realize like just how much you can learn from competing with a business like that, was really great. So that was a great experience, and I always wanted to be a part of something fast growing. And then I kind of for a couple of years I kind of just bounced around. I didn't really know what I wanted. I was in multiple sales roles, and I knew that like I wanted to do something big, but it took me, I mean, probably after that. Another 6 to 7 years until I actually started, my own business. So, really interesting story. I saw this guy online who posted about this course, and it really resonated with me. It was the first time that I could see something where I was like, business kind of made sense to me at that point, right? It was just like the pieces that all come in place. Even when I was at College Pro, I didn't really understand it at this level, and he just did a really good job of outlining it to me. So I bought the program and I went through it, and it gave me the framework and the contract to go get a my first client. And so there was a referral from another client that I had when I was working as a sales rep. They introduced me, and I just basically followed that framework, and that was how my business started. So
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
yeah,
And I think one of the things that we underestimate the value of is those early experiences in college pro when you're painting the houses, right? All of the trials that you went through, I think you called them failures, and I think as an entrepreneur, we consider failing forward, right? Like we just keep learning and growing and developing as we continue to screw things up because we think we've got it all figured out, but rarely do we. And so there's the fail forward, or there's the win or you learn. Not win or lose, but win or learn. And I think both of those things are really hard because you talk about our education system and process, right? We're incentivized not to fail, to not make mistakes, to not push the bounds and possibly do something that is going to sort of test the limits of what the teacher is sort of trying to teach us and the way we're approaching it. We're sort of the education system sort of puts us in a box, and so I love the fact that you got exposed to some of that early on and went, okay, there's a lot of hard here, but there's also a lot of value in being an entrepreneur and setting out on your own. So
yeah,
I think that's fantastic.
yeah, and I should mention too, I haven't said this publicly because I've kind of been embarrassed about it, but a lot of the roles that I had, I got fired from. And the reason why now, looking at like the reason why I was fired is because I was, and I believe this now, is I was meant to be an entrepreneur. I just couldn't fit as like a cog, a wheel for me personally. And I always wanted more. So I always wanted to put my hands in other things to make things better because I couldn't just go a 9 to 5 and then be done. Right. And I worked in like boiler room. Like I worked for a currency broker out of the UK, and I was calling, like making 120 or 130 calls a day, cold calls a day to businesses. And like just those experiences, right? You just learn so much through them. And it just, every time that, I would move on to the next thing because I was let go, or, the a company that I worked for, they shut down. So that also happened. It just made you like that much stronger, and really has been, the DNA of how I operate today.
Yeah, I love it. There's some scripture in James 1:2 that says, "Rejoice in the trials." And you're like, "Wait a minute, I don't want to rejoice through the," but it talks about what happens to us from building perseverance and how we learn and grow. And I think there's just so much value. I don't learn anything actually I don't learn as much when everything's going smoothly. It's when things go sideways that I stop for a second. I look around and go, "How did I get here? What did I do wrong? What can I do better next time?" And so I appreciate that, and I totally agree. I've looked at myself, and I dropped out of law school, had a full scholarship to become an entrepreneur. Uh, but from the get go, even the jobs I had, I was always looking at it from the angle of like, I didn't understand why anybody stayed employed in there. I'm like, why do they not just go like start their own thing? I had this DNA inside of me where I'm constantly trying to break things, to make them better. But most of the time, that's not what the business owner or the business wants. They're like, just do what I hired you to do. And I'm like, okay. So I think there's something to being wired a certain way and being almost unemployable. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. So, can you tell us a little bit about Catalyze Growth Partners and the work you're doing there?
Yeah. So, the business when I originally started, it was just with one client. So, I really just got them as a client, and I thought, well, I'm gonna work my butt off to make sure that these guys get a really good result. They're really good people, and the way that I've always thought about business is that your case studies and your testimonials are really your business, because if you don't have good case studies or good testimonials, like, you don't really have a business, right? And so that had been my focus, is just focus on getting them a good result. So in just under a year, we almost tripled their business, and they ended up getting acquired by a huge player, basically their dream client in the space. So that was a really good outcome. And from there, moved over the agreement with the larger company. So that was great, which is still my client today. And then decided, you know what, I think that I can help other businesses. So now we've really just been focusing on expanding those services to other businesses. But it's all just come back to like the information that I've learned throughout the times that I've been at with these other companies. And the main thing for us is helping. Primarily, our clients are in the insurance or financial advisory space, and they're looking to grow their business. And we provide them a holistic solution where, from lead generation to offer creation, to appointment setting, and then because we're not registered, obviously, we don't do the sales component of that. But up until that point, we take over that entire process for businesses, and then improve it every way. So that includes paid ads. We also do video content. We've built out like a class structure to help like funnel prospects through a class structure to warm them up prior to becoming, open to having an appointment. So there's a variety of different mechanisms, but that's where our business is today. So
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to pick an extreme example. I can see somebody on LinkedIn I've never met before and go, oh, hey, that person looks like an ideal client. I'm going to call them out of the blue and have a conversation with them about how they should be a client, right? It's the equivalent of calling up a girl and going, hey, you know what we should do? Get married. You look like you check all the boxes for me. And she's like, hold on, right? I don't know anything about you. What are we doing here? It's an extreme example. That client could go, yes, that's exactly what I need. Let's do it. Let's effectively get married and, start the engagement. Or if I switch that around, my calling up the girl analogy, and I say, hey, you look amazing. Everything about you looks like it checks a lot of the boxes. I'd love to take you on a first date. Are you open to that? And then you go on that first date, and I think that's where what you were talking about around like building out the course and the content. Like, hey, let's introduce you to who we are, how we think, move you along in the process, and then at some point you'll go, all right, you're delivering tremendous value to me. Let's engage, right? Let's become a client beyond what we're doing here in the course side of things. Is that a fair assessment of how you're putting together some of your marketing to, because I think sales and marketing have to work really well together. I can have the best sales process in the world, but if I don't have any marketing to bring people in, it's no good. And if I'm bringing people in and I don't have any way to like convert them into clients, like I don't have the skills necessary to do that, that's also a problem. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so I would definitely say yes. And I actually, as our business, we for our clients, we do this really well. For ourselves, ironically, we don't do it that well, and that's something that I'm changing this year, because we need to leverage the same things that we're building for our clients. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. People will start there, and this doesn't matter if it's B2C or B2B. I look at business as B2P, right? Like, or P2P rather. It's people to people, right? And so people are going to start their research online, right? And they're going to go through the content that you're going to have. They're going to, look you up on LinkedIn. If you have a YouTube channel, they have information that they're going to look at. And I've actually seen clients, or sorry, not clients, prospects that have implemented a system where you have to go through 4 or 5 videos on their YouTube before they even start the sales process with you. So there's so much information online, and it's really easy to get access to that information. We're not living in a world, where you are, as a salesperson, are the holder of the information. It's available everywhere. And so if you're a business and you're not providing that to people to help them, get warmed up in the sales process, you're just at a disadvantage. So
Yeah. Yeah. I just read a book. A client, another guest just recommended it to me called They Ask You Answer. And very much about what you're talking about. Like let's think about and let's actually take the actual questions they're asking us and let's create content to help answer those. And not necessarily answer it, pointing it all back to us from a sales perspective. Let's just be an authority in this space. So people go, wow, I trust you. I trust you to give me the right answer, whether it's your firm or somebody else. And I think that can be awfully hard to do as business owners to go, hey, the best answer might not be with us, And I can give you an example of that. Like somebody could show up to us and go, hey, I like to have my hands in the investment side, and this is exactly how I believe investments should be managed. And it's like, I don't know if we're going to be a great fit for you because we might think somewhat different. And so the best thing for you is actually go set up an account at Schwab or Vanguard or wherever and like self-manage that thing. And here's a few guardrails to think about when you're doing that. And because I think if we try to take that person on, it's just going to be brain damage for both of us. We're going to be frustrated with each other. At the end of the day, they'll disengage anyway. So I think that sort of being the thought leader in the space and sort of just providing a ton of value, like curating information for people, I think is valuable and builds a ton of trust. So
for sure.
I love what you're doing there.
The thing that I've realized, I've probably spoken to over 1,000 advisors, and all these advisors are not starting fresh, right? Like they have clients already. Um, and one of the challenges that they have is like, how do I communicate my value, and how do I attract people? Like they're not saying this specifically, but this is what I'm hearing, is that like we're not attracting enough people to increase the flow of opportunities that are coming through, or leads. Um, and we don't know how to do that. And the really interesting thing that has really helped me, and this is what I do with every one of our clients, the first thing that I tell them is go interview your clients. Like go ask them specifically, like, why did they join? Why did they join, or decide to work with you and not with other people? What specifically were they looking for when they were searching for, another advisor? Or, I mean, this could be applied to any business, to other businesses. But I don't think enough businesses do that and really take the time to sit down with them in a format like that we're doing, but really just asking them questions. And clients, especially if they like working with you, which for in the advisory business, the churn rate is extremely low, right? So they're going to like working with you. You can just get so much information, and that will help you dictate, what you should be marketing, right? Like if you're talking about an investment, right? Different types of investments. People don't care about that right now. What they care about is they care about taxes, they care about RMDs, right? And they care about distribution strategies. So why would you make information or content around investments when these are the things that people care about the most? And the only way that you would know that is by going through and having conversations with your clients, or if you're in a situation like you're an advisor, picking up on those things and writing them down and say, okay, this is what I'm going to make content on, because this is what constantly people are asking me about.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I want to go back to something you said earlier and apply it to your situation and also advisors. And I can even see it in our own firm. One of the first things you mentioned was you helped the business triple in revenue, right? We had tremendous growth. The only way that happens is outside of some real unique thing, is it's not going to happen through a natural market, just taking referrals, because that's going to be much more linear versus the exponential growth, right? And so I think you probably saw that in your firm. You were like, I'm okay with linear growth for the time being, but now we're going to start. We're ready to like scale and grow at a massive level, and we're going to start applying these principles because we need growth that will come in, and we need to foster. Because an interesting thing that happens with the referral is I'm transferring all of the client's trust to the prospect. Right? They're saying, "Hey, this person's amazing. They do great work," and so they're going, "Great. If John trusts them, I can trust him. We're in good shape." The the person searching on the internet has none of that trust that they can lean on, right? They find you through, a podcast or a website or a blog article or some paid ads you're doing, and they're like, okay, who is this person, right? I need to start building that trust, and I see that start to happen through the content we're putting out. Like I've had people reach out to me ready to engage just because they've interacted with enough of our content and they're like, I know who you are. I know how you think. And I'm like, this is amazing. I've never talked to you before. I don't even know your name. So if we really want to scale, like we have to bring both the marketing and the sales piece in to drive that forward. So I don't know if you want to talk any more about that, but I think that's a key piece. Like referrals are great, but if you want to start growing beyond that, you've got to dial things up.
Yeah,
I'd say.
I've actually been thinking about this a lot recently. And it really depends like what the business person wants to do, right? Like if we're talking about building something like a business, the purpose of business is built is obviously to help customers. Like that's the number one thing. You're helping people solve a problem and doing it more efficiently than, other businesses are doing it. But really we're creating enterprise value. So if we're talking about how we're creating enterprise value, like you have to have systems and you have to have processes in order to create that enterprise value. So there's a lot of advisors that I would say that they are like creating a business. And the reason why I say this is because this is what I did when I first started. I thought I had a business, but I didn't really because I didn't have processes or systems in place. But like I would say, like they built kind of like a lifestyle business, which is totally fine, and that's okay if that's what you want to do. If you really want to make like a much larger impact, and this was kind of a realization that I had, is that you get to a point where money, whatever that limit of money is to make you happy, it's limited, right? You hit that ceiling, and then it doesn't really matter how much more money you make. The marginal happiness that you have, or the marginal feeling of purpose that you have, is reduced greatly. But helping more people, and that doesn't mean just customers, that means employees as well, right? Get like a steady paycheck. Like that's the next purpose. So if the purpose is to attain that in the most efficient way possible and grow something that is large, then you have to have a referral process. You have to build out content. You have to look at growing your business as like an absolute necessity, because the frame now is not just, well, I want to just create like a nice life for my family. It's, I have a much larger purpose and I need to create these systems so that I create enterprise value that maybe for an individual that wants to sell it, it's worth it. Or at the very least, it's a cash flowing business that you can disconnect yourself from, and just runs by itself. So
Yeah. I love that. And I think you're hitting on a key thing. I just read Cody Sanchez's book called Main Street Millionaire. And she's talking about the number of small enterprises out there. And I think financial advisory could fit into this bucket, but it could also be the plumber, the electrician, that type of thing. What they've done is they've developed a job for themselves, right? It might be a fairly high paying job, but if you take those people out of that business, it completely stops running. There's no systems and processes. I can't show up and go, all right, I'm going to read the manual and hire a few people and like just get them plugged into the systems and run the thing. And I think you see a huge percentage of financial advisory firms that way. It's totally dependent on the advisor to go get the business, execute on the business. They might have an assistant to help with some of that. They might have either another advisor to help take some of the business that they're no longer interested in working on. But um, that's there's no enterprise value in that business, right? Like I might be able to sell the recurring revenue that comes to another advisor, but I'm not going to have a huge valuation there. Private equity is not going to be knocking on my door to go, hey, we want to buy this thing from you. So, yeah, I think those distinctions are really important, and I think setting the expectation for the advisor to go, look, if you want this to be something that has tremendous value, you have to start not just growing the revenue piece, but the systems and the processes, so you can step outside of the business and let it be self-managing. We're big believers in Dan Sullivan's strategic coach. I've been a part of strategic coach for a few years, and I like the idea. And this is forced when you start adopting this, it forces it on the business. But Dan talks a lot about 150 free days a year. Okay. So if you think about that, there's 52 weekends a year. So there's 104 days plus some holidays. Say we're up to call it 135 or 115 free days now. Now I've got 35 free days left to use, and I've already used up my weekends. That's 7 whole weeks off. If you start like taking that approach, you have to build a business that can run without you, because pretty quickly you start leaving, and then it causes a bunch of pain. And it goes back to one of our early points about failing forward, or you win or you learn, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get exposed here on the areas of my business that are weak. And so you have to train and develop people, right? That's sort of like key. AI might be able to do it all someday, but it's not there yet. So I got to train and develop people, and then have good systems and processes that I can get people plugged into. So, yeah, I think those are fantastic realizations on, if we're really going to drive enterprise value, those are things that need to happen there. I don't know if you
Yeah.
have any additional thoughts or comments on that, but I thought that was worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I've been seeing in this business, the financial advisory business in particular, is that, and actually it's funny because I had a conversation with somebody that their business is about $1 billion in assets under management, and he's like, we're just way like our industry is way overpaid for the value that we provide. And I dug into that a little bit deeper, and he just said the toughest part is acquiring a client, but when you get one, it's like really difficult for them to leave just because of all the hooks in making sure that people don't leave. It was really interesting that he said that because it's in his view, the fastest way that businesses have been growing is through acquisition. But even in acquisition, now people are getting older. The business that you have just acquired is not staying, right? Because their money is moving to somebody else. And then those kids you haven't built a relationship with. So you're like, what are you really buying, right? And he's starting to realize that. And he also mentioned that fee compression is making it much more difficult to make this business more profitable. Yet, in my experience, not a lot of advisors are looking at different ways of creating revenue. I know that the larger ones definitely are. They're adding, tax planning, or they're adding insurance into their business. But there are a lot of businesses that are just like, I make money over AUM, and it's like those businesses I think will struggle in the next 10, 20, 30 years because they're not adapting to where the market is moving. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more about our industry. And I think about our largest revenue source is actually consulting revenue. It's not AUM. And we just believe in the flat fee model. I'm just going to walk through the problems I see with both the commission model, right? If I'm selling commission investments, and that's been on the way out for a while, but I also see the AUM model has problems as well, right? So let's just start off with commissions, right? This can go into the insurance category, it could go in investment products. Like there's still a lot of commission stuff out there. So like we have some clients that go into oil and gas investments. Now the firm that has those, we work with a few different firms, but they pay commissions. Where we're like, we don't want the commission. So what happens is the client puts, let's say, $200,000 in, and instead of paying us a 6% commission, that all just gets added into their investment. So the client's like, hey, cool, I just got like a 6% bump in my equity from the get-go. That's pretty neat. Where we can't get rid of the commissions, we donate them to charity. We're just like, okay, life insurance, if there's an annuity piece, something along those lines that, I could send them out into the marketplace, but now I just transferred the problem from, me having a misaligned incentive to somebody else having a misaligned incentive. So it's like, why don't we get you the right thing? And then we're just going to donate all the money to charity. Like, I don't have a financial incentive. I'm not going on a vacation or buying a car with this stuff. And then going to the AUM model, my problem there is if your complexity doesn't change from, let's say, $1 million of assets under management to $2 million of assets under management, why am I charging you twice as much money, right? Yeah, depending on the fee structure, I could be charging you twice as much money to do the same amount of work. Like, I don't understand the model where I'm charging you based on the value you bring versus the value I deliver. And so we just look at that and we're like, okay, forget that model. Like, we're going to mix both the consulting and the AUM together. Um, and generally, our consulting fees are way higher than what the client has for AUM, and so, but we'll offset for every $1 million of AUM they bring in. We'll reduce down the consulting fee, and it actually we make less money on the AUM than we do the consulting. But because we like to pull the levers for the client to make sure that, hey, here's the tax strategy. Let us help you execute on this. But we went back and did the math, and we save our clients over $280,000 of income tax, and they might pay us 60 to 70,000. We've got some at the $3,000 a month range, so there's $35 to $40,000 a year. So it's like in those scenarios, like, the value we're delivering is a multiple of what they're paying us. So we feel pretty good about that. Like, there's no concern, and it's really high touch, and we're helping them accelerate the value of their business, and all those enterprise value things we were talking about. So I don't know. I'm a little bit on my rant here on just the industry in general, but I think we should, as an industry, probably move to more of a flat fee model versus not. The only problem I have with that is if somebody doesn't have many assets, right? Doesn't have much income, it's really hard for them to get good advice. The internet and the information age and AI is sort of democratizing that a little bit. If I really dig into it, I can go find some answers. But I think there's also a concern about things like crypto, right? People could put all their money into crypto thinking, oh, this is a wise financial move. And it's like, some crypto investments, okay, but I probably shouldn't have all of my wealth in any one particular thing. So I don't know. Those are just some random thoughts on industry. I don't know if you have anything to expand on there, but
Yeah, I would just say that there's like the incentives are just not fully aligned, right? And I think that they're kind of starting to unravel. And I mean, in our business, like, we take a revenue share, right? But there's like our goal is to take 20 to 30% of the value that we create for our clients, and I show clients like how that is going to happen, right? We're just, there is an incentive for us to do a better job. Whereas in like the AUM model, it's kind of like their incentive's not really there. Like, it kind of is because, yeah, the market can go up, but like you're not controlling that, right? And so there are other things that you can provide. Like, some of our clients, we have bonus structures with them based on specific outcomes, right? And so like that looks like, appointments set, or and it's not really a set, it's more appointments set that are good appointments. Based on the outputs that we create, like, that's how we get bonused out. And so those are things that are directly in relation to the value that we're creating for our clients. And I think that the industry, the financial advisor industry, is going to go through that transition at some point. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm sure that, I mean, the fee compression is probably forcing people to think about other ways to provide value and make money because of that. But
yeah, I love it. That's great. Um, So I'm very interested in, because we have a number of advisors that also listen to the podcast, just learning about how to help their clients pay less tax and build more wealth and live an optimized life. So when we think about that, I'm very interested. Maybe we continue this conversation outside of the podcast, but we like the idea of growing and scaling our business, and we're doing that because we've got a mission that we think matters. I think the ultimate mission is to help people live an optimized life. A secondary mission is I can't stand sending money to the IRS. Every dollar I send to the IRS is like flushing it down the toilet. Like there's no value that really comes out of that. It gets chewed up in the bureaucracy. And our goal is to save $1 billion of income tax, right? And just leave that in the entrepreneur's hands to build more wealth. They drive the U.S. economy, and let's let them, all of the work and energy they've put in. Let's let them like build this optimized life. So, and then I think there's a whole different discussion on understanding what an optimized life is, right? It's this acronym called REACH: relationships, experiences, advancement, or growth. The C is for contribution, the H is for our health, and that's our spiritual, emotional, and physical health. And so, it's not more zeros on the bank account, right? That's not an optimized life. So that's sort of our mission. And so I want to expand that mission. I want as many people as possible sort of in our, ecosystem going, yes, I'm dialed into this. Let's grow and do this. So if somebody else is in that same camp as me, what does it look like if somebody comes along and says, Pat, have Catalyze, help me grow my business. Can you just walk us through what that process looks like, what you do when you onboard somebody, and walk through that?
Yeah. So a lot of what we're going to be doing is pulled out through the process when we're having the conversation, right? The quality of the questions really will dictate the quality of the answers, but also like what you're actually going to create for somebody, right? And that's why we don't have like one size fits all for everybody, because there's different ways to grow businesses based on the variables that are presented, and the quality of the discovery will dictate like how well you're able to attach those or align those goals that your prospect is trying to accomplish with what you're actually delivering for them. So for everybody, I build a plan based on a deep discovery. Like sometimes it goes over an hour, and I purposely don't rush it. So if we run out of time, I'm not saying, okay, well, I'm going to build something for you. I go into the next discovery and say, if I don't understand exactly what you're trying to accomplish and the pain that it's causing you, then I'm not going to build something for you, because I'm going to miss something. And then, we're going to go into a relationship. It's not going to be what you want. You're going to cancel. And then it's just wasted our time and it's wasted yours, because we're looking for longer term clients. It's really just understanding what they're trying to accomplish in a really deep level. And then taking some time to really evaluate, like, what would be, if I were this person and this was my business, how would I approach this problem? Um, and so it's really building out a process. And for most businesses that I speak with, their offer is just not, it's not optimized. So they either offer something that's very similar to something else, or they've just decided, like the AUM thing, right? I charge 1%, and they can't justify it. And what happens is people get commoditized because they just look at you and you're like everybody else. So the first thing that we do is really optimize the offer. The way that we're able to do that is back to what I was saying before, which is interviewing your clients. So and there's two purposes of that. One is to get the information so you can build an offer that resonates with the market. But secondly is to get case studies, right? To get people to publicly say that they like working with you for these reasons, because that's going to help improve the sales process. So that's usually the first method. The second method is just creating flow, right? I think a lot of business owners, especially if they're in a referral based business, they don't understand that, you need to create flow, which is like leads or opportunities of people that may never even buy. A majority of them will probably never buy from you, but you need to create flow in your business to get new opportunities. And in every, business that I've worked in any literature that I've ever looked at, everything's staying the same. If you just increase the amount of leads that you have, you'll increase the amount of revenue that you have for your business, right? So that's the second thing that we typically do. The third thing is some sort of business development component. So that can include like the marketing to support that. So creating the content, creating the information, but there's some sort of factor where we have our team, or there's outreach to those people to create those opportunities. And then final component of that is what's the supporting documentation to warm people up to help that business development process. So it's either a 3 or 4 prong solution, but it's customized, like the actual mechanism, whether it's like YouTube or it's Facebook ads or it's Google or it's a referral structure. That's all customized based on that individual client.
I love it. I love it. So I've got a few follow-ups there that I'm just interested in. So
Sure.
what does it take for the advisor? Because I think you, um, from a time commitment perspective, right? Like we've got our meetings, but what do I need to do outside of those meetings to help execute on all those things? Because I think about where our firm's going, and I'm seeing my role being more and more on the, we're working on high level strategy. I'm working on, how do I get this strategy and the content and the framework that we're developing out there to the world? I'm solving the most complex tax problems in our firm, but I haven't touched paperwork in a long, long time, right? And I shouldn't be. But there's some people that are in the mix, right? They're doing all the stuff, and to add a new thing into, their firm, I imagine on your end, there's actually a little bit of a screening process, right? Like, are you positioned well to be able to take on new business? Because if it's just you running around like a chicken without a head, that's not effective, business management structure. Because you can only run around so fast before the wheels fall off this thing. So
Yeah, there has to be like a desire to grow, right? Like, if somebody's like, I want to add another $1 million in AUM this year, it's just not a great fit for us, right? But if someone's like, I really want to grow, I want to double my business, or I want to add, an extra 30% this year, and they don't know how to do it, that's what we're looking for in terms of like ideal prospects. Um, in terms of the level that we provide in terms of the services really depends on the person. So I'll give you an example. One of our clients right now, she's really involved in the delivery of what we're like creating for this class. And she just like wants to be involved with it. She doesn't want to touch like any of the marketing stuff though. So like like the offer, she wanted us to help her with that. Like landing pages and all the automated systems in the back end of like following up with people and like the reminder systems, the payment, how that works, like all that structure in the back end is what we're building. But I would say that she's unique in being like wanting to be more involved in that. I find that most people, they don't. And then if it comes to content, like we can definitely create content that is not based on the founder, but in every scenario that I've worked with a business and the founders making the content, it's more authentic, and so the results are always better. But yeah, it really just depends on the client and what they're looking for.
I love it. Yeah, no, this is great. So Pat, if somebody wants to engage with you, I they can go to catalyzegp.com and fill out the form and see if get on the wait list. I think that's a great place to start. Is there anything else that folks should be looking at in regards to the work you're doing and how to engage with you?
Yeah, so I definitely will be more public on LinkedIn and probably Twitter. But the waiting list that you'll be joining, I'm going to be adding just some of my thoughts around business and some of the things that I'm seeing. I've been really fortunate to talk with a lot of different advisors, so I definitely want to start sharing some of those insights that I'm learning from what people are doing to grow their business. Like one example is this guy that I know in LA. He's created like like all of his business development is through YouTube. It's really interesting, and that's how he's grown his business. So I want to start sharing more of those insights. And that would be the best way. So LinkedIn, Twitter, or through the waiting list on our website.
Sure. Fantastic. We'll have links to all of that in the show notes so people can go check that out. Yeah. And I think about, you know, just entrepreneurs in general, right? If we invest in a client acquisition and growing our business, um, there's challenges with that, right? Like we might have to create new structures and sort of make the business different than what it started as. But at the end of the day, it gives us more freedom, more flexibility, more peace of mind. We can impact more lives, right? If we truly believe in the work we're doing, we're making a difference in the world, not just externally, but also internally with our team and the people that we get to impact there. So I think that's fantastic. And then I think about if we don't grow and scale the business, it's just hard, right? Everything's dependent on you. If anything goes sideways, there's not as much margin when it's a small operation, and it's like, you're almost better off like just go get yourself a job versus try to grind it out on your own. So, I think this has been fantastic. Anything else, Pat, that we should add to this discussion before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would just say like entrepreneurship is very difficult, and I hear a lot of people say like, I don't know if I would do it again if like I thought about this and like I understood how difficult it was. But there's no better feeling of just being free, and you're the one that dictates, the decisions that you make, because there will be good decisions and there will be terrible decisions. But at least you have the agency to make those decisions. So, and I think like the final piece of that is it's okay as well if that's not you. I truly believe that there are people that want to do that, but there is also room for people that really want to work hard throughout the day, but then just be totally disconnected. And in order for businesses to operate, we need both people. So.
hmm I love it. Pat, we first met when you were doing some of your research on, what's going on in the advisory space and how people are growing. And so I'm looking forward to the results of that research and what's working and what's not. And I think it'll be worthwhile to just continue this conversation to see how we can grow and develop our firm in a way that just continues to impact more people. So thanks so much for joining us here today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Patrick.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. It's always a pleasure to bring these conversations to you, and I hope you found it valuable. If there's one key takeaway from today's conversation with Pat Brennan, it's this: building a successful business is about more than just acquiring clients. It's about creating trust, staying purpose-driven, and building systems that allow your business to grow and thrive without relying solely on you. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss future conversations packed with insights to help you minimize your taxes, master wealth, and optimize your life. If you know someone that would benefit from what we covered today, share this episode with them. And remember, you're a vital entrepreneur. You're vital because you're the backbone of our economy, creating opportunities, driving growth, and making an impact. You're vital to your family, creating abundance in every aspect of life. And you're vital to me because you're committed to growing your wealth, leading with purpose, and creating something truly great. Thank you for being a part of this incredible community of vital entrepreneurs. I appreciate you, and I look forward to having you back here. Next time on the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast, where we help entrepreneurs minimize their taxes, master wealth, and optimize their lives. Thanks again for joining me. Until next time.